The alarm bells at Earth Command Station rang out like a funeral song across the lunar base. Commander Teo stood before the massive display screen, watching red dots spread across the star map like an infection with no cure. Each dot represented a human colony. Each red dot meant the same terrible thing: silence. No communications, no hope. "How many?" Teo asked, though he already knew the answer would break something inside him. Min-Su, the intelligence officer, stepped forward with a folder that seemed too thin for containing so much death. 7 colonies gone, Commander. The last transmission came from Kepler Station. They had only 4 minutes of warning before the Krell weapons reached them. Min-Su's voice was flat, empty of emotion. That was how people spoke when they had delivered too much bad news in too short a time. Teo closed his eyes. He had visited some of those colonies. He had eaten food grown in their soil. He had laughed with engineers and scientists who had made those places home. Now those places were dust floating in the cold of space. "The Krell are not stopping," Min-Su continued, pulling up a series of star charts that showed movement patterns. "Look at their route. They are not random. They are moving through our territory on purpose, testing us, learning where we are weak." The commander studied the patterns. Min-Su was right. The Krell Empire had ruled the galactic core for 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of civilizations. They had never met resistance that lasted more than a few rotations. But they had also never encountered humans before. Humans were young. Humans were desperate. Humans had nothing to lose and everything to protect. "Prepare a message for the Galaxy Council," Teo said finally. "Emergency session, 1 hour." 2 hours later, the council chamber was packed. It was a strange sight. Beings of every shape and color stood or floated or clung to the walls. The Terran representatives looked like living crystals, sharp and beautiful. The Gen were pure consciousness held in energy fields, visible only as shimmering shapes in the air. The Vaughn were tall and thin, with too many joints in their limbs. And humans, with their simple two-legged bodies and soft skin, looked almost out of place among such strange beings. The Vaughn ambassador spoke first, as they always did. "This is a problem for humans, not for us. The Krell have never bothered our worlds. They leave us alone. Why should we interfere?" "Because they are testing the waters," Teo said, his voice steady and clear. "Today they attack human colonies. Tomorrow they attack Vaughn colonies. The Krell appetite is endless. You all know this. You have all lived under their shadow for generations." A Gen Council member shimmered with what might have been laughter. "The humans are young and emotional. They see threats everywhere. The Krell Dominion has maintained order in our galaxy. Stability is more valuable than freedom." Teo felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Anger would not save colonies. Anger would not unite this broken council. "Min-Su, show them the data." The intelligence officer activated the display. Suddenly, every council member could see what Earth Command had discovered. The Krell were not simply expanding. They were accelerating. In the last 100 rotations, they had consumed more space than in the previous 1,000 rotations combined. They were hungry. They were hunting. And they had clearly identified humanity as the first real threat they had faced in millennia. "This pattern suggests they will reach our inner colonies within 60 rotations," Min-Su explained. "If we do nothing, Earth itself will be in danger within 120 rotations." The chamber erupted in noise and confusion. Some ambassadors argued that humanity was being foolish. Others claimed that the Krell would never truly attack unless provoked. A few of the younger species representatives looked frightened, as if Teo had awakened them from a long sleep. But it was the ancient Terran general, a being so old that his crystal body had begun to cloud with age, who finally spoke with truth. "The boy is right. We have let fear rule us for 10,000 years. We have traded freedom for the illusion of safety. The Krell take and take because we allow them to take. Perhaps it is time to remember what it means to fight. The Terran general's words carried weight, but they were not enough to move most of the council. Vote after vote went against any meaningful action. The council was paralyzed, as it always had been, frozen by ancient fears and comfortable arrangements. Teo knew then that Earth could not depend on the Galaxy Council. Earth could only depend on itself. He returned to the command station and called for his closest advisors. They gathered in the war room, a place that had never been used for actual war. The screens lit up with Earth's military capabilities. The numbers were small compared to the vast fleets of older civilizations, but they were real. They were human. "We are going to broadcast a message," Teo announced. "Not just to our allies, to the entire galaxy, on every channel, every frequency. I want every being in this galaxy to hear us." His team worked frantically through the night cycle. They crafted words carefully. Every sentence had to carry the weight of humanity's future. Every phrase had to speak truth without cruelty. Every word had to be absolute. When dawn came to the lunar base, the message was ready. Teo sat before the camera, his human face calm and determined. Behind him, Earth hung in the darkness of space, blue and green and beautiful, fragile and strong at the same time. "I am Commander Teo of the Terran Commonwealth," he began. "I speak for all humanity, and I speak with the voice of every human who has ever looked at the stars and wondered if we belonged there. Today, I tell the galaxy the truth. The Terran Commonwealth claims full sovereignty over the Perseus sector and all human-controlled space beyond it. Our borders are absolute. Our people are not slaves. Our worlds will not be conquered. This is our warning to all who would take from us. Cross our borders with weapons drawn, with conquest in your hearts, and you will face oblivion. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The message went out into the darkness. It traveled through every communication relay in the known galaxy. It reached the peaceful worlds and the war-torn worlds, and the worlds that had forgotten what freedom meant. In the Krell Dominion, on the world where Velkethis ruled his eternal empire, the ancient warlord heard the words of this young species. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone had dared to make him a promise they might actually keep. Velkethis smiled. It was not a kind smile. He began to prepare for war. The fleet jumped into existence at the edge of Perseus sector like a terrible dream becoming real. 247 Krell warships moved through space with the confidence of a species that had never lost a war. They were massive vessels, built for domination, their weapon systems alone carrying more destructive power than entire human nations. The Krell were not trying to hide. They did not need to hide. In their experience, hiding was what prey did. Captain Heijun received the alert while he was reviewing tactical manuals in his ready room. The screens flickered to life showing the Krell fleet, and he felt a strange calm settle over him. This was what he had been trained for. This was why he existed. "How long until they reach the defense line?" he asked Lieutenant Park, his tactical officer. 23 minutes, sir. They are moving at standard approach speed. No evasive maneuvers. They know we are here and they do not care. Heijun allowed himself a small smile. That confidence would be their weakness. The Krell had spent thousands of years facing only civilizations who broke and scattered when faced with true power. They had never fought an enemy who understood that a smaller force could still win if they were fast enough, smart enough, and willing to take risks. "Launch fighters," Heijun ordered, "all wings, and activate the drone swarms." His crew moved with perfect efficiency. They had trained for this. The human fleet did not have the raw power of the Krell, but they had something better. They had Lieutenant Jiwoo. Jiwoo sat in the cockpit of her fighter, a sleek machine called the Hawk that was built for speed and precision. Around her, 200 similar fighters powered up their engines. She felt the vibration through her bones as the launch sequence began. Her hands moved across the controls with the grace of a musician playing a familiar song. "All squadrons check in," Jiwoo said into the comm. The responses came back rapid and clear. "Squadron 1 ready, Squadron 2 ready, Squadron 3 ready." 10 squadrons of human pilots, each one the best their world had to offer, each one knowing they were about to face impossible odds. "Launch," Jiwoo commanded, and the first wave of fighters shot out from the fleet toward the advancing Krell. The Krell had expected resistance. They had not expected this kind of resistance. The human fighters did not try to match the Krell warships head-to-head. That would have been suicide. Instead, they swarmed around the massive vessels like insects attacking a giant, striking at weak points, damaging weapon systems, and creating chaos across the Krell formation. Jiwoo wove her fighter through a storm of Krell anti-aircraft fire. Her screens showed her the enemy weapons as heat signatures, and she danced between them like they were not there. Her finger tightened on the trigger, and 3 Krell drone fighters exploded in bursts of flame. "Stay in formation," she called to her pilots. "Do not break ranks. They want us to scatter. We stay together, we stay alive." The battle was not a battle. It was controlled chaos. Captain Haejun directed the fighting from the command deck, moving pieces on a board like a master player of Jangi, the ancient Korean board game. He sent squadrons to exploit openings. He used his heavier cruisers to screen the fighters. He employed swarms of automated defense drones to create zones of death that the Krell could not cross without taking losses. The Krell commander, a being named Val Thresh, grew frustrated. He had commanded 1,000 battles, and in all of them, the enemy had eventually surrendered or been destroyed. This enemy did neither. This enemy adapted. This enemy fought with tactics that honored something the Krell had forgotten: cunning. Val Thresh made a decision. He would destroy the human fleet with overwhelming force. He pulled his formation together and advanced on the human position, accepting losses in order to reach the core of the enemy formation. It was exactly what Haejun had been waiting for. "All ships, execute maneuver Falcon's Wing," Haejun commanded. The human fleet split apart, and the Krell found themselves moving into a trap they had not seen coming. Haejun's heavier warships surrounded the Krell formation on 3 sides. The drone swarms, released from their defensive positions, created walls of fire that the Krell weapons could not penetrate. Dr. Ha Soo-jin watched the battle from her position on the research vessel. She was not a soldier, but she understood mathematics, and the mathematics of this battle told her that humanity was winning. Against all reason, against all experience, against everything the galaxy believed about power, humans were winning. The Krell losses mounted, 30 ships destroyed, then 50. Then 63 warships hung dead or dying in space, their weapons silent, their crews gone. The Krell fleet did something it had never done before. The Krell fleet retreated. Captain Haejun watched the enemy vessels disappear into faster-than-light space, and he allowed himself a moment of something that might have been triumph. Around the human fleet, crews cheered. They had done the impossible. They had faced the Krell and lived. More than that, they had won. But the moment of celebration was cut short when a new message came through on emergency channels. It came directly from the Krell command ship. It came from Velkethis himself, the ancient warlord who had ruled the Krell dominion for longer than most species had existed. "You have earned the right to die fighting, little Terrans." The voice was calm and measured and absolutely final. "I am coming. Prepare yourselves." The screen went dark. Haejun stared at the empty space where the Krell had been. He understood what that message meant. This battle had not been the war. This battle had been a test. The Krell warlord wanted to see if humanity was worth his personal attention, and humanity had passed the test. Now the real fight would begin. In the hours after the battle, Haejun received visitors to his ship. Jiwoo came with a group of her pilots, their faces marked with the exhaustion of combat. Dr. Soo-jin arrived with her research team, already analyzing the Krell weapon systems to find weaknesses. They gathered in the command center, and they did not celebrate. They understood what they had learned. The Krell were not invincible, but they were organized, powerful, and led by a being who had mastered the art of war across millennia. The battle they had just won was a victory, yes, but it was also a warning. The real trial was still to come, and this time, all of humanity would stand at the precipice of existence itself. The war room on Earth had become the center of human existence. Maps covered every wall, screens displayed information that never stopped flowing. Reports of Krell movements came in every hour. Scientists worked without sleep. Soldiers trained beyond exhaustion. Earth itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if humanity would survive the storm that was coming. Commander Teo moved through the command center like a man walking through a dream. His eyes were dark with sleepless nights. His uniform hung loose on his frame. The burden of leading an entire species toward potential extinction was etched into every line of his face. General Kyung-soo found him staring at a tactical map, the same map Teo had been studying for hours. The general was the opposite of the commander. He moved with energy, with purpose, with a plan that burned in his mind like fire. "I have something for you," Kyung-soo said, and Teo turned to face him. "It is mad, but it might work." "I like mad," Teo replied. "Mad is all we have left." Kyung-soo spread out his plan across the table. "We cannot win a defensive war. The Krell have more ships, more weapons, more resources, but we can win an offensive war. We strike at them while they march toward us. We attack their supply lines. We damage their communication networks. We show the galaxy that the Krell are not unbeatable." Teo studied the plan. It was dangerous, almost suicidal, but it was also brilliant. "You want to carry the fight to Krell space?" "Exactly. And more than that, we unite the galaxy against them. There are dozens of species that have lived under Krell domination for centuries. They are afraid, yes, but they are also tired. If we show them that the Krell can be hurt, they will join us. We create a coalition. Together, we might actually survive." The commander nodded slowly. "Send Ambassador Nari. She can do this." Nari was one of Earth's greatest diplomatic minds. She was charming and intelligent and completely fearless. When Tae-oh gave her the assignment, she did not hesitate for even a moment. "I leave tomorrow," she said simply. "By next rotation, I will be on the first alien world. These species do not need complicated speeches. They need hope. We are going to give them hope." While Nari began her journey across the stars, Dr. Soo-jin worked on something equally important. In her research facility, buried deep beneath the mountains of Korea, she labored over human genetics. The Krell were stronger than humans, their bodies were harder, faster, more resilient, but humans had something the Krell did not have: adaptability, the ability to change, to evolve, to become something new. The Titan Protocol was her answer. It took months of testing and refinement. Soo-jin used genetic material from the strongest humans on Earth. She designed enhancements at the molecular level, improvements that strengthened muscles, accelerated reflexes, and enhanced cognitive processing. But she was careful. She had seen too many enhancement programs fail because they tried to improve everything at once. She focused on what would actually matter in combat. The first test subject was a volunteer named Min-jun, a soldier who understood he might die on an experimenter's table. Soo-jin watched as the protocol took effect over the course of weeks. Slowly, Min-jun became something more than human. Not inhuman, still recognizably human, but improved, enhanced, better. When the Titan protocol proved successful, Soo-jin activated the full program. Hundreds of volunteers stepped forward to be enhanced. thousands. The change in their bodies happened quickly. Within weeks, Earth had the first generation of enhanced soldiers, fighters who matched the Krell in physical capability, if not in pure mass. While Su-Jin created super soldiers, Chief Engineer Do-hyun worked on weapons. He was a genius with machines, a man who could look at a problem and see solutions that others missed. When he studied the Krell warships captured during the battle with Captain Hae-jun, he found something important: a weakness. The Krell ship architecture relied on a central power coupling that was, by design, difficult to protect. The Krell had never worried about internal sabotage because they had never fought an enemy with the technology to threaten them internally. Do-hyun designed a weapon that exploited this weakness, a directed energy pulse that could be delivered directly into the Krell power core, causing a cascade failure that would cripple an entire warship. "This weapon is untested," Do-hyun warned Teo when he presented the design. "It might not work, and even if it does, it will not be easy to deploy." "Nothing about this war will be easy," Teo replied. "Build it. We will find a way to use it." Months passed. The Krell did not attack immediately. Instead, they prepared. Reports came back to Earth showing massive mobilization across the Dominion. The ancient warlord was gathering his greatest fleet, calling ships from every corner of his empire. Velkethis was preparing for something that humanity had forced him to prepare for: a war for survival. In the meantime, Nari's mission bore fruit. The Terran collective joined the alliance first. The crystalline warriors had fought the Krell for centuries and had never surrendered. Their general, an ancient being named Harvek, brought with him the ships and troops of his entire civilization. The Gen Protectorate joined next. Their energy-based consciousness allowed them to interface directly with computer systems, making them invaluable for coordinated digital warfare. Their councils voted unanimously to stand against the Krell. One by one, species that had bent their knees to the Dominion for thousands of years began to stand. The Vaughn Collective sent their fastest attack craft. The crystalline Carthans contributed their advanced mining and engineering vessels that could be converted to war use. The organic synthesis joined with their biological warships that adapted and evolved during combat. When Nari returned to Earth, she brought with her representatives from 17 different species. They stood in the United Nations chamber on Earth, and they looked at humanity with something new in their eyes: respect. "We did not believe one species could change the galaxy," the Terran General Harvek said, his crystalline voice resonating through the chamber. "But you have shown us that the Krell are not gods. They are only beings, strong but not perfect. You have given us hope. We will follow." General Kyung-soo unveiled his plan to the full coalition. The strategy was to strike from 3 directions simultaneously. The human fleet would assault Krell supply lines. The Terran and Vaughn forces would engage Krell combat vessels. The other allied species would strike at communications networks and resource gathering points. "We will not try to destroy the Krell Dominion," Kyung-soo explained. "We will make it too expensive for them to maintain control over our space. We will bleed them. We will frustrate them. And eventually they will have to choose between continuing the war or accepting our independence." It was a bold plan, and it required perfect coordination and absolute commitment. It also required that Captain Hae-jun and Lieutenant Ji-woo prove themselves once more in battle. The coalition prepared for war. Ships moved into position, soldiers trained together, learning each other's tactics and ways. On Earth, citizens understood that they were living in the last days before everything changed. They spent time with their families. They looked at their world and tried to memorize it in case the Krell's weapons took it away. And in the cold of space, somewhere beyond the edge of known civilization, Velkethis gathered his greatest fleet. He was old, but he was not tired. He was ancient, but he was not weak. The Krell warlord was ready to crush this young species that had dared to defy him. The Coalition war room was a place of controlled chaos. Commanders from 17 different species stood around tactical displays that showed real-time information from across 3 sectors of space. Some commanders communicated through complex hand signals, others through vibrations in the air, and still others through telepathic pulses that humans could barely perceive. Despite their differences, they were unified in purpose. Captain Hei-Jun stood at the center of the room with a holographic star map floating before him. Each position on the map represented hundreds of ships and thousands of human lives. He traced his finger along the planned assault routes, mentally calculating probabilities and outcomes. "The supply convoy here," Hei-Jun said, pointing to a region of space near the Kepler Nebula, "is the key to their entire operation. If we destroy it, the Krell fleet slows down. More importantly, it shows them that we can strike anywhere, anytime." The Terran General Harvek's crystalline form gleamed in the light. "And you are confident this can be achieved?" "No," Hei-Jun replied honestly, "but it is our best chance." The attack came at dawn, Earth dawn, though the battle itself took place in the absolute darkness of space. Hei-Jun led his fleet forward with Lieutenant Ji-Woo flying point. Behind them came 300 human warships, each one bristling with weapons and crewed by soldiers who had trained harder than they thought was possible. The Krell defense fleet protecting the supply convoy was large. 87 warships arranged in a defensive pattern that looked unbreakable. Hei-Jun had expected this. He had planned for this. "All wings, execute Starling formation," Ji-Woo commanded into her comm. Around her, 200 fighter craft shifted their attack pattern. Instead of striking directly at the convoy, they dove at the Krell defensive ships, forcing them to spread out to protect their charges. Hei-Jun watched the dance develop from his command deck. The Krell reacted as the Krell always reacted, with overwhelming force. But overwhelming force was not always the right tool. Sometimes precision and speed were worth more than raw power. The human cruisers moved in, targeting the supply ships with Do-hyun's new weapons. The energy pulses shot through space like rigid light, and when they struck Krell vessels, the results were catastrophic. Ship after ship experienced cascading power failures. The Krell defense fleet, suddenly without supply support, found itself fighting a battle it could not win. Captain Hei-Jun did not wait for a total victory. Victory in war meant knowing when to retreat. After 43 Krell ships lay dead in space and 200 Krell supply vessels had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair, Hei-Jun called the retreat. His fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed and was gone before the Krell reinforcements could arrive. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere. Across the galaxy, the Coalition forces moved. The Vaughn Collective attacked a Krell communication relay station and disabled it for weeks. The Terran forces struck at 3 resource mining operations simultaneously, destroying hundreds of millions of credits worth of valuable materials. The Gen Protectorate infiltrated Krell computer networks and planted digital viruses that would take months to purge. And with each successful strike, something shifted in the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of the Krell for thousands of years began to believe that fear was not permanent. Resistance became possible. But the Krell did not break. They adapted. Velkethis, watching these attacks from his command center on the Krell homeworld, understood what was happening. The Coalition was trying to make war too expensive for the Krell to continue. It was a sound strategy, but it was also predictable, and the ancient warlord had not survived 10,000 years by being predictable. He ordered a new strategy: terror. Krell strike forces attacked human colonies specifically, bypassing military targets to strike at civilians. 3 planets were glassed from orbit, their surfaces turned to molten slag. Billions of humans died. The message was clear: the Krell would not negotiate. The Krell would not compromise. The Krell would not stop until humanity was extinct. The Coalition reeled from the attacks. Some member species began questioning whether the alliance was worth the price. In the Galaxy Council, old voices of caution began speaking again. Perhaps, they said, the humans were being too aggressive. Perhaps, they suggested, accommodation with the Krell was still possible. Commander Teo listened to these voices and felt something harden inside him. He went to Dr. Su-jin's facility and selected 10,000 enhanced soldiers. He sent them to the front lines with orders that were simple and brutal. Hold the colonies. No retreat, no surrender. The enhanced soldiers fought like demons. They were faster and stronger than regular human soldiers. But more than that, they had been taught by Su-jin to fight as coordinated units, with each soldier understanding the position and purpose of every other soldier. Against regular Krell forces, they were devastating. But the Krell committed their best warriors, elite troops called the Vel Prime, fighters who had been upgraded with Krell technology and chosen from millions of candidates. The battles between enhanced humans and Vel Prime warriors became legendary across the galaxy. They were not large battles in terms of numbers, but they were intense, brutal affairs where every life mattered and victory was measured in meters of ground held. Captain Hae-jun watched these battles from orbit and felt something he had never felt before: despair. His fleet was winning tactical victories, but the Krell were not breaking. They had too many ships, too many soldiers, too many resources. It was Ji-woo who pulled him back from the edge of that despair. "You are thinking like they want you to think," the pilot said when she came to his ready room. "You are measuring victory by their standards, but that is not how humans win wars." "How do we win wars?" Hae-jun asked. "We survive them. We endure. We take punches that should kill us, and then we throw back punches even harder. The Krell think in terms of victory and defeat. We think in terms of tomorrow. We just have to keep fighting tomorrow." Hae-jun understood then what Ji-woo was saying. This war would not be won in a single battle or even a single year. This war would be won by a species that refused to die. And humans, despite everything, despite the losses and the pain and the overwhelming odds, were still alive. On the Krell homeworld, Velkethis made his decision. He would not continue this grinding war of attrition. He would not waste the resources of his entire dominion on a slow campaign of conquest. Instead, he would gather the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever seen and end this war in a single stroke. He would attack Earth itself. He would destroy the center of human civilization. And once Earth was gone, the rest of humanity would collapse like a building with its foundation destroyed. The Grand Armada began to assemble. 2,000 Krell warships, the largest dreadnoughts ever built, unlimited resources, and the full attention of the Krell Empire. It was the largest military force the galaxy had ever witnessed, and it was aimed directly at Earth. The message came through classified channels to Earth Command, and when Commander Teo read it, he felt time slow down around him. The Krell were mobilizing their entire military. Every warship in the Dominion was being recalled. Every resource was being committed. The Grand Armada was assembling. An intelligence report suggested it would number 2,000 warships, the largest military force ever gathered by any civilization. And it was coming to Earth. Teo called an emergency war council. When the generals and admirals arrived in the command center, they could see the truth written across the star maps. The humanity had stirred the giant, and now the giant was coming to crush them. General Kyung-soo studied the data silently. After several minutes, he looked at Teo and asked, "How long do we have?" 3 months. Maybe less. They will come through here. Teo pointed to the map, moving at maximum speed. The general nodded slowly. "Then we have only one option. We do not defend Earth. We attack the Krell Dominion directly." The room erupted in protest. Captain Hae-jun, who had just arrived from the front lines, stood and let the chaos settle before speaking. "The general is right," Haijun said quietly. "Our fleet cannot defend Earth against the Grand Armada. But while they march toward us, their core territories are vulnerable. We hit them at home. We threaten their world. We force them to choose between attacking Earth and defending what they love most." It was mad. It was suicide. It was the only chance they had. Commander Taiyo made the decision that would define his entire existence. "We go on offense. General Kyung-soo, you will lead an assault on the Krell inner territories. Take Captain Haijun with you. Take every warship we can spare. I want them to see our forces coming and know that we are coming for their blood." Over the next weeks, the coalition mobilized for its greatest offensive. Ships that had been defending colonies were recalled to fighting fleets. Enhanced soldiers were equipped with the most advanced weapons available. Do Hyun's experimental weapons were loaded onto every warship. In the shipyards of Earth and across allied worlds, engineers worked miracles, getting every available vessel combat-ready. Captain Haijun, standing on the command deck of his flagship, looked at the assembled forces and felt pride. Not just in human ships and soldiers, but in the entire coalition. Terran warriors stood shoulder to shoulder with human pilots. Gen consciousness entities merged with human computers to create strategic systems no single species could have created alone. The galaxy was united, not by fear of the Krell, but by hope in something better. "All fleet commanders, this is Haijun," he transmitted across all channels. "We have less than 3 months. In that time, we hit them hard. We make them bleed. We prove that any species willing to fight deserves to survive. Launch all ships." The assault began like a storm front moving across space. Hundreds of ships jumped to light speed, heading toward the core of the Krell Dominion. Behind them came 3,000 more, every military vessel the coalition could gather. The Krell were not expecting this. They had not planned for an attack on their core worlds while their Grand Armada was on the march. By the time they realized what was happening, Haijun's fleet was already deep in their territory. The battles that followed were the most intense combat that space had ever witnessed. Human pilots fought alongside Terran warriors who had existed for 10,000 years. Gen energy entities disrupted Krell computer systems. Enhanced human soldiers stormed Krell bases using tactics that made them nearly unbeatable in personal combat. Chief Engineer Do Hyun stood on a battleship's bridge, watching his experimental weapons devastate Krell warships. But his mind was thinking about something larger. The Krell had one central command station, one place from which Velkethis commanded all of his forces. If they could destroy that station, they could cripple the entire Krell military structure, at least for a time, at least long enough. "I need volunteers," Do Hyun announced. "I need a pilot brave enough, or foolish enough, to fly a shuttle directly into the Krell command station and set off a nuclear charge from the inside." Jiwoo stepped forward immediately. "Not you," Do Hyun said. "I need you in the skies. I need the best pilot the galaxy has to offer defending Earth." After a moment of silence, a young human soldier named Sung Min volunteered. Then another, then 10. Then 50 people stepped forward, each one willing to die to strike a blow against the Krell. Do Hyun selected Sung Min and gave him the best escort he could gather. The shuttle launched toward the Krell station, moving faster than it had ever moved, pushing its engines past safe limits. Krell weapons fired at it. Some missed, some hit, but the shuttle's shields held. When Sung Min reached the command station, he did not try to land. He did not try to be subtle. He flew the shuttle directly through the station's main entrance, and when the shuttle was deep inside, he detonated the nuclear device. The entire command station exploded. Chief Engineer Do Hyun watched from his ship, and for just a moment he allowed himself to grieve. Then he returned his attention to the battle. Sung Min was gone, but what he had done would echo across the Dominion. The Krell military command structure was shattered. Coordination between fleets became impossible. The advantage shifted, but back on Earth, something catastrophic was happening. The Grand Armada had not slowed. Even without command coordination, the Krell warlord continued his advance. And now, as the coalition forces deepened their assault on Krell space, there were fewer ships defending Earth. Lieutenant Jiwoo understood what was about to happen. She had received the reports. The Grand Armada would reach Earth orbit in less than 24 hours. The Earth Defense Fleet was small, only 300 ships commanded by Admiral Han Sol, a warrior of incredible skill but facing utterly impossible odds. Jiwoo went to Earth Command and asked for a meeting with Commander Teo. "I need to defend Earth," she said simply. "You will be slaughtered," Teo replied. "Probably, but someone has to hold them until the assault on Krell space succeeds or fails. Someone has to stand between the Grand Armada and home." Teo understood. He had made peace with the fact that most of them would probably die in this war. But some deaths mattered more than others. Some sacrifices echoed louder than others. "Take command of the Earth Defense Fleet," Teo said. "You have 24 hours to prepare. Make them count." Jiwoo worked through the night, preparing defenses, positioning ships, setting up a perimeter in Earth orbit that was small but so layered with weapons and defensive systems that the Krell would have to work hard to break through. When dawn came to Earth, when the sun rose over the blue and green world, Jiwoo stood ready. And high above, invisible until they entered scanning range, the Grand Armada appeared. 2,000 Krell warships, the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled, and the only thing between them and Earth was 300 human ships and the woman who would not bend. Jiwoo looked at Earth beneath her, at the billions of lives depending on her to buy time, and she opened communications across all human channels. "Humanity," she said, her voice steady and clear. "We stand at the edge of tomorrow. Whatever happens here, know that we fought. Know that we did not surrender. Know that we chose to stand. This is our moment. This is our time. And we will not be forgotten." She turned her attention to the Grand Armada. "Krell," Jiwoo transmitted, "come and face what you have created. Come and know that Earth will not fall easily. Come and meet the species you made into warriors. The first Krell weapons fired. The first human ships died. And the final battle for humanity's future had begun.